Let me tell you something.
That's the problem that we got.
What you see right now is going to happen 10 years from now. And at 26, you're going to be doing the same thing I'm doing. You understand that? 10 years. You're going to be right here too.
But he also got to
So what I need y'all to do right now at 16 is come up with a better way. Because how we doing it, it ain't working. He angry at 46. I'm angry at 31. You angry at 16.
It's old, man. It's old,
You
man.
understand me?
It's old.
Putting yourself in harm's way is not the way.
No, it's not.
You and the other your counterparts the same age and that has that same power. Y'all come up with a better way. Because we ain't doing it.
Oh my God.
And I have a 5-year-old son. And it ain't happening. I marched 4 years ago. Keep Lamont Scott did the same shit y'all doing. The same exact thing night after night after night. It don't matter. Come up with a better way.
Welcome to KelvinLogic, where we take my thoughts and use my crazy logic to talk about anything and everything. And today, we've got a very important topic to talk about. We're going to be talking about current events and my thoughts on them, and actually a bit of real talk. I normally for my videos don't write scripts, don't do things. I will just, you know, if it's the Harry Potter series, I'll play the game and do my thoughts on that, or if it's something else I'm talking about, I'll just kind of pick a few key points that I want to do and ramble. And today is similar but different. Today I actually want to just give my thoughts, pour out my heart with what's going on, based on a church service that I just watched. Yes, for those of you who don't know, you can watch a church service online. I am here in New Zealand and I do have a home church, but I also love to watch Elevation Church. So I just got off there and that struck some things in me. So I thought, right, well, I like to talk about things, so let's talk. So today, before I start, I'm going to just take a bit of what Pastor Stephen from Elevation said. And he said, before you take a stand, take a seat. So that's what I am about to do. I'm going to take a seat, and we're going to, hopefully, my goal here today is to start a conversation based around my thoughts, based around some of the ideas that I just heard Pastor Stephen and his friend Pastor John speak on, to do with George Floyd and the current tensions around not just America, but in my opinion, around the world. So, yeah, we'll transition to me taking a seat, and let's go for it. Alrighty, so I'm now sitting, and you might be wondering why I've got a smile on my face when I'm about to talk about some pretty serious, some pretty grave stuff. I'm not smiling because I'm happy about what's happened. I'm not smiling because I'm trying to wash away the pain. But smiling for me helps me keep energy, and just because I'm doing a more real talk today, I don't want to drop the energy. But yeah, so anyway, I'm now sitting. Why did I use that phrase, take a seat before you can take a stand? Well, I think it's actually really significant. There are a lot of people out there who are angry. There are a lot of people out there who are upset. There are a lot of people out there who are disheartened, especially in America, but even all around the world. And I really think that this take a seat before you can take a stand is significant in the fact that a lot of people got to the end of their rope. The boiling point just came, and like that, people use their anger. Now, hold on. I am not judging anybody. I live in New Zealand, not America. Yes, we are a country that has had a bit of racism in our history, but in my opinion, it is much better here than it is in a place like America. Now, that is not to say that there isn't still racism in New Zealand. There is racism all over the world. But it is just like the Constitution is a bedrock of American society and American culture. Unfortunately, racism and discriminatory thoughts and actions, mindsets, and just a culture of dividedness, a culture of division, a culture of it's you against me, has always been there in America, from when it was being settled by many different nations, to when it became America fighting for its independence against the British, but then the division between the, I guess you could say, the new Americans versus the native Indians, or the indigenous people, whatever you like to call them. There's been that division. Then there's the division of the Civil War between the North and the South. There's that cultural division of Republican versus Democrat. There is a whole heap of division that is just laying down just underneath the surface of American society that I think nobody is addressing, or at least nobody openly that I have seen. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. And it's not just in America. I think it's in the world, and this is something I will touch on in this video. I hope not to make this too long though. So there are 3 key points that I want to touch on today. I'm hoping that whoever sees this, whether it be as this is going on or in the future, can use this kind of like the elevation service that I just watched. For me, I hope it can change your thoughts. I hope it can bring you to sit down and talk about things before we just let the anger click in and we go out and destroy cities. So point number 1, anger. What I have been seeing, and keep in mind, I'll say it again, I am coming from the perspective of listening to a lot of different people, whether it be mainstream news, which I know isn't overly correct, whether it be pastors, because yes, whether I've openly said it or not, I am a Christian, so a lot of what I say, not just today, but going forward, will come from a place of Christianhood, and my interpretation of Christianhood, and my values and my beliefs and the way I interpret it. That is not to say that I am going to make this preachy. This is to start a conversation. But anyway, I am coming from New Zealand. I am coming from looking at it at outside sources, from mainstream media, other people like pastors or people in America or other people in other countries that are looking in at it, that might have more cultural ties to America than New Zealand might. You know, I'm looking at from people who are Christians. I'm looking at from people who aren't Christians. I'm looking at it from people who are Muslim or Jewish or Hindu. Black, white, Hispanic, whatever. With that said, I'm also coming at this from a place of awakening, let's say. Without putting it lightly, I'm coming at this from a place of being a racist myself. Not nearly as racist to the point that I would kill a black man or kill a Hispanic or whatever. Like a lot of people in today's society, especially in Western culture, you kinda grow up with a little bit of it ingrained in you, to a certain extent. And some of it you just kind of choose to believe. And so that, for me, is what has happened. I've, been ingrained with a little bit of it and then chosen to believe other parts of it. And unfortunately, it has taken this and another few incidents over the last couple of weeks to a year, whatever, to fully click out of it. So I'll admit it, I was, and it will take some time because nothing happens just like that, to get out of it. But that being said, I also have an appreciation for people of colour, people of other cultures. I do have friends who are of other cultures and other skin shades. But getting back to point number one, anger. I want to raise the question not why is everybody so angry, because I understand why everybody's so angry. I understand that enough is enough. That people have been fighting against this for so long, and either only little steps have been taken or nothing seems to be changing. We're in 2020 now. It's not 1850 or 1620 or, it's not back in those what we perceive as old and uncivil days, and even to an extent uneducated days. We are in a day and age where we know that racism is bad. We know that we shouldn't discriminate. We know that black people aren't lesser than white people. But we know that in our heads and in our minds, and I think to a certain degree that a lot of us don't actually know that in our heart. And one of the other big things Pastor Stephen brought up was a lack of empathy. So what is empathy? What is empathy defined as? Well, this is what Google says. Now keep in mind that this isn't necessarily 100% correct, but this is the definition that I choose to use that I think is a pretty good representation of empathy. Empathy is generally defined as the ability to sense other people's emotion, coupled with the ability to imagine what someone else might be thinking or feeling. Cognitive empathy, sometimes called perceptive talking, refers to our ability to identify and understand other people's emotions. I reckon that's a pretty good definition. I reckon that also is a good definition to jump from, or to have as a base of why I think our culture as Western society, but even as a world society, has a lack of empathy. I think in certain areas we have a good amount of empathy, in other areas we have an extreme lack of empathy. So, what do I mean by that? Well, depending on how you were raised, what you've done in your life, the people you've come in contact with, the jobs you've had, the opportunities you've had, and all of that is why I think that there is sometimes a lack of empathy. I think a lot of people go through a lot of hardship themselves. I think a lot of people are being taught to switch off I think a lot of people are over constant attacks and just hit after hit after hit of different things, whether it be through mainstream media or on social media or YouTube or whatever. And we're just being hit with thing after thing after thing. You know, we've had the civil rights movement, and we've had the Black Lives Matter, we've had, you know, equality, we've had women's rights, we've had, you know, fighting for gay rights, and fighting for transgenders, and fighting now for gender fluidity. And despite your opinions and your positions on them, it's just one thing after another, and that has caused us in part to become numb to actually taking a step back and actually going, okay, what is going on here? It does two things, really. It stops us from taking a step back because, for one, we don't let ourselves connect with the right empathy. We go straight to anger. And we go straight to fight mode. This must change. We need to change this. Yes, that's true. But how are we going to change it? Influencers, people from Hollywood, people on TV, leaders of the world, whether it be kings and queens of countries, presidents of countries, prime ministers of countries, whatever. No matter who your leader is, no matter whether you agree with him or her or not, we go, you need to change this. Well, it's not always that easy for them to change it, because it's a cultural thing, not a legislative thing. And I think that we go straight to anger, and we need to do things, and people from Hollywood, and, you know, and I bring up people from Hollywood because you'll have your movie stars or your musicians or, you know, your directors and all of this, and your TV show hosts and stuff go, Black Lives Matter, or, you know, Gay Lives Matter, or whatever it may be. Of course, in this case, it's Black Lives Matter. George Floyd's life matters. Cool, but what are you actually doing about it? You've done your part. You've kept your image good. You know, you've come out against this, and you've gone, this life matters. You know, these people's life matters. Cool, but what are you actually doing about it? Just saying something. If every time we just went online and goes, these people's lives matters, then what's actually going to happen? Because before this, there would be, for example, a black person die. And it might have been at the hands of a white person, whether it be a white civilian or a white law enforcement person, whether it be in America or somewhere else. And we go, the catchphrases and the chants come out, this life matters, this has to stop, and everybody goes, yeah! And there's a sense of unity, which is good. Everybody's in agreement that this has to stop. And then nobody does anything. Everybody waits for somebody else to do something. And nothing changes. A couple of weeks go by, maybe a month at most goes by. And as soon as the media drops it, as soon as social media drops it, you know, as soon as the people of influence stop talking about it and it's all over, it's out of our mindsets. We haven't changed our thoughts on it. We haven't changed the way we feel about it. All we've done is gone, yeah, stop this now. Okay, let's go back to normal life. You know, it's over. We've done our part. We've done enough. Things will change because we're ignorant and we're hopeful. And once it's out of the way, we go, okay, back to normal life. I've got a job. I've got a family to look after. I've got schooling to do. I've got whatever, you know? But that needs to stop. And I think that for this specific case, that's why the rioting came. Because people are like, right, we need to do something. And instead of taking a step back and actually having a conversation about it, and finding the best solution forward and trying to change the culture, we let the anger take over and we start going bullet at a gate. And now cities are up in flames. Police departments are being taken over and up in flames. Police cars are wrecked in the streets. Police are having to put on this protective gear and have shields and batons and tear gas, and National Guards are being brought in. And then people go, well, you can't, you know, Trump goes, oh, we've got the military there ready and able. Well, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that. Oh, okay, you can't do that, yet you want him to do something. You want him to be on your side and fighting this. He's going, yes, I don't support the rioters. Yes, I support an investigation into the law enforcement officers who did this. What else do you want him to do? So the anger, and especially in this case, the rioting needs to stop. And we need to focus that pain, that sadness, that anger into something constructive, like sitting down with one of my black friends and talking to them about, okay, what is your culture? What is your personality? Or if you actually get along with your counterparts from other races just fine, then spreading it with other friends in your friend group, other people in your community that you know that might not hold that. Because as Pastor Stephen brought up, he pastors a multicultural, multi-generational church, but yet it's no good for him to celebrate that while he's on stage talking into a mic and talking to thousands of people, but then go home and start using the N-word about every story or everything he hears about that specific race on the TV. But a lot of us do that. A lot of us are insensitive or put on a mask while we're out with our friends, out with our co-workers or in public, and yes, I'm anti this and I'm anti that, or and I'm pro this and I'm pro that, but when you get home behind closed doors, what are you really? That is something we need to change. That is where the culture needs to change. Alright, so I said at the start of this that I didn't want this to get too long, and yet, like normal, I just let my thoughts take over, and while it's good, it is long. So I'm going to actually break this up into the 3 different points. So for this one, this was point 1, and this was the intro plus point 1. And tomorrow I will give you point 2, and then the next day we'll have point 3, and I might even expand on those 2 a little bit, because point 1 was definitely the longest, and I think that I could add a little bit more to the others. But just in summary, and just after re-watching Speak on this predicament America and the world finds itself in. I think that anger fundamentally is not the way to challenge and combat things like racism and division in your nation, in the world, and I think that we need to find that common ground of unity like we did when George Floyd died, and keep that and have conversations and work together and retrain our minds and our feelings to stop the things like the rioting and the looting and this aggression that comes not just this time, but thinking about it, there has always been a period of aggression, maybe not to this extent, but always a period of aggression after something like this happens, even if it's just to the extent of in your local communities, where that aggression between white people and black people, or, you know, all different races of people, that aggression comes and it manifests in different ways. Normally it's not quite as bad, let's say, as this. So anyway, I'll leave you with this. I hope you come back tomorrow for point 2, which is the rewiring of the mind and of your heart, your feelings. It will carry on straight from this point, and I think that, at least for me anyway, the way I've made this, set out these 3 points, they go together quite nicely. So if you've agreed with some of the stuff I've said so far, it would be well worth your time. The other 2 will probably be about 20-25 minutes each as well, roughly. The third one might actually be a little bit shorter, depending on how much I add. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that you feel you can share this with your friends, with your family, with people you know, whether they be white, whether they be black, whether they be Christian, whether they be Muslim, and not to spread my channel. I want to make that very clear. I don't think I did at the start. I'm not doing this as a, oh, there's this topic, let's go for it, let's get views. I don't really care about the views, but this is a channel that I made to talk about things, and I think that, quite honestly, I think that God's put some thoughts on my heart that I wanted to share, and I think that need to get out there. So if you could share it, if you've watched this, the entirety of it, that's great. If you could share it with your friends, with your family, and just start a conversation. Share it with them and go, do you agree? What do you think? Let's chat. But anyway, guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.